I never know what I'm going to say, so I just wait until something shows up, and then that's it. So for the next couple of hours, what we'll do is we'll be able to share in unknowing, which is pretty much what we're talking about here, which doesn't make any sense really. Because how would you talk about unknowing? How would you know unknowing? And at the same time, there is only unknowing. So if you understand what I'm saying, that's not what I'm saying. I can't actually talk about what we're here to share. I can talk about what covers up what we're here to share. I can talk about the experience of being an individual and how that hides the absolute obviousness of what is. We can talk about how the individual tries to find what it feels like it's missing, what's lost. But what we can't point to is, there it goes, is how that is all there is how that missing it, how that experience, how that covering up is what's looked for. And when I say what's looked for, it's not like an idea or a concept or something that will be added to the individual as something that makes the individual happy or whole again. What's looked for is what is, and it's not experienced as that because it's not an experience. The individual is stuck in a world of knowing, which is experiencing, which is distance. And it's completely unrecognized that experience itself, and I'm talking about experiencing sitting on a chair, experiencing hearing these words, is a tension, is an uncomfortable distance, which makes the experience of what's happening feel like it's not complete, it's not whole. So what we're sharing here isn't that there's going to be something understood, something known, something new to discuss, that then we can add to ourselves. What we're talking about here is the loss. A loss that no one could ever imagine. A loss that is completely surprising and completely unexpected. And what's then revealed is the unexpected, which is unknowing. Which is quite literally no thing. It's a positionless, timeless everything, which is all there is, which is this. So we can share, sit in silence, question, answer, whatever comes up is fine.
You said to me earlier on, how do I know that I'm here? So my answer to that question is that it feels like it's very much me in here, sitting on a chair, listening to Jim and Newman talk. How else could I possibly look at it?
Well, no, you've just described the problem.
Right.
I know I'm here because I experience what's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit about that, or is it?
Well, that's pretty much it. That's what's happening. That's what happens. That's how the individual is a self-confirming experience. And it's looking for the exit through that self-confirming experience. And what it can't do is undermine that self-confirming experience. But that's what it really wants. Because that experience is an experience of duality, of A and B, me and that, inside and outside.
And there's obviously nothing that can be done about that.
Well, it's not just that nothing can be done about that. It's that's what's looked for. The experience isn't really a problem. It's only a problem for the one that experiences that. But it itself isn't an issue. There isn't anything really happening. There is only no thing appearing as all of this, including the experience of being an individual, of being separate from this.
Jim, I've got a question. Just on almost all of your talks, you say the only thing that is really not real.
Yeah.
So I understand that.
Yeah.
That things.
That's why I asked him. How does he know?
Exactly. So the things are real or not real. That tree is nothing. Treeing. Understand.
That question is nothing questioning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but then you say the only thing that's absolutely not real is this sense. Now, this sense of me comes and goes. So, like a thought. Now, a thought is real and unreal. It's nothing appearing as a thought. So, the sense of me is nothing appearing as a me, then disappears. But you kind of single that out.
Absolutely.
You single it out as a not real at all, but a thought is the same thing. It's
not really. No, it's not. It's not, because what happens is that when that individual, when the experience of being an individual falls away or collapses, it's immediately recognized at the same time that it never happened. That's why that question, how do you know that, completely ends in nothing, because there's no way to know. But it's sort of in this sort of, in space, it sort of turns on itself and self-confirms itself until there's a break in it and it's recognized it was never it.
And you single that out as the one thing
that
has no reality.
I don't single it out. It just is that way.
It is that way.
Because what it does,
it's the one thing in all appearances that has no reality.
It's the one thing. Well, it's not even there. That's the point.
Oh, okay. Yes, okay. And so you're separating from a thought and saying, well, a thought is there.
Yeah.
It's real and unreal. But a self isn't there, it's just a feeling.
It's not just a feeling, it's actually a contracted sense in the body.
Oh, okay. So it's an amalgamation of different feelings, tension, it might be.
No, it's really a sense of contraction in the body, which then makes everything appear as something it's not, meaning exclusively real. And the thing is that it has consequences after that. It becomes exclusively real, which makes it mean something. It matters. This matters. And then it means it matters to me, how I live, what I do. And so this constriction feeling that the sense of loss of the individual creates a sort of a tool pack that the individual then has. So everything that happens, the thoughts, the feelings, it puts it all into sense. It tries to make sense so that it can find its way through, so it can be a good person, finding what it feels like it's lost, and hopefully in the end get that by contracting, by becoming neurotic. The reality is that whole thing, including this, is absolute emptiness appearing as that.
What it appears to be illusory self.
What appeared that this is real. The only difference is it appears that this is real. And just it appearing as real doesn't make it real. It's still the unreal appearing as real, but the experience of the individual is it's exclusively real. That it really matters, that it really makes sense. That covers over the fact that this is an utter mystery. No one has a clue what's happening. This is unknowing, appearing as knowing. This is no thing appearing as something happening.
I kind of get a sense for what it's pointing at, what you're describing.
Yeah. But you're pointing over there, and the fact is that is it. There's nothing outside of that. There's nothing outside of what is. The experience of the individual is there is something outside. There's something really happening. There's something going on. And that going on is real. When the individual or the experience of being an individual falls away, there's still what's going on, but it doesn't really mean anything. The bottom falls out.
Can I ask about time and space?
Yeah?
With the appearance. So the appearance seems to be changing.
Yeah?
All the time.
Yeah?
And I just wondered, it appears as if we're moving through time and space from one experience to the next.
Yeah.
that could it be that just the appearance keeps changing?
Yeah.
And there's no time and there's no space and there's actually
Well, there's
nothing.
apparent time and apparent space.
Yeah.
The only thing that's being suggested here is that's not real. It's real and unreal. It is and it isn't. It's empty. It's no thing appearing as something. It's unknowing. It's ungraspable. The experience of the individual is that it's something that it can hold on to and know and deal with and use it to find what it feels is missing. There's a complete misunderstanding. Nothing's missing. It's actually looking for what's happening, for what is. The end of experience. Which is all there is. Which makes the search very frustrating.
So when you've had the experience you've had, the illusory you, is it kind of like a returning,
No.
or is it the death of something that kind of created itself and it was an illusion?
Well, I'm not sure what you're pointing to exactly, but when the experience of this being about something ends, what's left is the recognition that this is about nothing.
Yeah.
And it's not a recognition. It's the end of it being about something. And what's left is nothing. Which isn't an experience. That's the problem for the individual. Because it's real, and everything it can do has to do with experience and knowing, it wants to find this through that.
Through that.
And that experience and knowing hides what it's looking for. Because there is only that. And as there is only that, it doesn't matter whether it finds it or not.
Jim, when you say this is actually what's wanted, what's happening, but what if the things aren't nice, then how can you say that's what's wanted?
Well, not nice has to do with an individual that thinks it knows what this is about.
But even so,
Anger is a pretty amazing feeling. Sadness is a pretty amazing feeling. When there's no one there that says I should or shouldn't feel this, or it means something or it doesn't mean something. The individual lives in a world of fear. It's very fearful. So it's threatened by things that comes up because it feels like it should or shouldn't be happening something, and that changes what is to good and bad.
and then so for what is it? I mean, it's not what's wanted. To who is it? What you say that's what's wanted, what's happening, but.
Well, what's wanted is what's happening. What I'm pointing to is that what's happening is the fulfillment of everything. The individual lives in an experience that this isn't it, that it should be some in particular way, and that covers over the reality that this is already a mystery of unknowing, which doesn't have that need for it to be good or bad.
Or even what's wanted.
Or even, absolutely. There's no one left to want it. What's wanted is a little confusing, I'll have to say, because it's not, the individual doesn't want this, because it can't want this.
So you could say the whole of everything wants it in a way because it's what's happening.
No, nobody really wants it in that sense, but at the end, what the individual is looking for but can't know is the end of experience. Experience is the real tension. Experience is the distance, the subject-object experience, which is uncomfortable. It includes knowing and judging and finding and losing, and when that collapses, it's recognized that there's only what was looked for. But that collapsing is the end of the individual. So it can't really want what is. Actually what is, unknowing, is completely unwantable. If it knew what it was, it wouldn't want it. It would run away, because it's the end of it. But in the end, it's what it wants. It's in the end, it's what it's looking for.
To who's it? What it's looking for when you say?
Well, it's the end of the problem of the individual. I guess I should stop saying that's what it's looking for. But it's what it's looking for.
Because it's what's happening in a way.
No, because it's the end of the struggle. It's the end of the tension. It's the end of the need to try to find something that it feels like it's lost. It's the end of trying to be a better person. And the difficulty for the individual is it thinks it's going to be something that it's going to be able to add to itself. It's going to be something new that it doesn't already know. Something new that it hasn't thought of before. That's going to free it from the experience of being an individual. And it's really a loss of that entire experience. Because this, the feeling in the body, the feeling in the hands, the listening, the hearing, the seeing, that's it. There is only that. That's unknowing appearing as that. Death. It's death to me, this is.
It's almost kind of, even if you're not what you think you are, you kind of, it's almost like you kind of try to know things so you can navigate everything and feel more comfortable by knowing. But I get a sense sometimes that I don't really know anyway, and that's a bit frightening.
Yeah.
I can't explain what I mean. It's sort of it's a kind of, when you've been talking, I don't know why I normally get things, but I kind of haven't been listening.
Oh, right.
I have listened.
You can't get your money back.
I've been listening, but it hasn't been kind of, it's like you don't want to hear it, I suppose. I don't know, maybe. Or maybe my concentration's not that great.
It's funny, the individual will do anything not to hear what's being said.
That's what I'm getting a sense of. It's like you was talking about pain and maybe guilt and those kinds of emotions and fear.
It's funny, I didn't mention guilt.
No, you didn't actually. You didn't actually. That's right. But guilt came into mind because everybody, for some reason or other, feel guilty about something. Because they haven't met the needs of the other. But this kind of sometimes guilt feeling, you rationalise guilt and you think, guilt is.
It's putting everything in a box.
That. Yeah.
It wants to put everything in a box.
Yeah.
It wants to solve it all. It wants to solve the fact that it's going to die, basically.
Yeah. So the feeling of guilt, in a way, is it as well.
Well, there's nothing outside of what is.
Yeah. So it comes. It just everything comes.
Everybody always has. It's all there is, including the individual.
Yeah.
The individual isn't a problem.
No. But it is when you think you're the individual.
Nobody thinks that they're an individual, but the experience of being individual is the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. Because you think this is happening to you. Apparently, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Let me try again my question, and I'll try and listen this time. Okay? So, you single out this sense of being a person as the only thing that is absolutely, has no reality.
Yeah.
So everything else is really unreal. Understand, empty, nothing's happening, nothing's ever happened. So, apparently. So, but you single out specifically that me as completely not real. Now, for example, if I could, so say there was a feeling of tension in the body, contraction, and that leads to a thought. It doesn't lead, but a thought produced. Out of nothing, that tension's there. Out of that tension, a thought comes. Would you say the thought is unreal? Completely?
Everything is real and unreal.
Yes.
And when the individual collapses, it's recognized never to have been.
Yes, I understand that. Okay.
I don't understand it.
Okay, so...
I don't even believe it.
Yes. Never to have been. Okay, yeah, okay, I'm with you. Yes.
So it's not there now.
Yes, I get it, yeah.
So does anything exist?
Yeah, obviously. But it's not real. It's real and unreal. And the unreal part, no one can do anything with. The individual is stuck with the real bit, which is dissatisfying because it's half of the reality.
Was it like a specific kind of moment when this was seen for you, or was it?
Certain bits of it were sort of like the individual thing, like I'm talking to him about. When that is recognized as that it's not. It's recognized that it never has been. But the end of the whole thing isn't real clear. It isn't a moment. It's not a recognition. It's not a realization. It's not a happening. It's the end of happening as real.
So something felt energetically different for you.
I can't tell you.
Was it sudden or was it gradual?
Well, there's certain things like this individual thing, you know, and that it's recognized never having been. That seems to be quite. The whole thing is sudden. This is sudden. This is sudden. That's the thing. It's sudden. It's so real it can't be known.
So if it was to happen, we acknowledge that it doesn't happen, and then you didn't go home when you left here, but your body went home, and then if you never said anything about what not the experience but the unknowing happening, or the apparent, or not an understanding, but it happened, what we're talking about. If you went home then, and you never said anything about what would other people notice?
It's
would
impossible.
your family members know that something's happened to you?
It's impossible to get closer to this.
Would they just go, what's gone wrong with you, you know?
It's impossible to get closer to this.
Oh, right.
Do you remember the last
It's
thing?
the experience that it's somewhere else that dies.
But, yeah, I see your point.
So I'm avoiding your question.
It feels like that, yeah. So, because they're not there anyway, they're not your
No,
parents.
that's not it.
No.
And that's not what I mean at all. It just
No,
doesn't
no.
make any difference. It's
Yeah.
just not. It's not about that. It's not
Yeah,
about
no, yeah.
who recognizes or what seems to be happening. It's not that.
It's not about that.
It's not about that.
No.
But what we're talking about is that this, just the way exactly as it
You see,
is unknowing, appearing to be something. There's no way to grasp it. There's no way to talk about it. There's no way to do anything with it. It's just simply everything.
So sort of is knowing, could you sort of define it in that illusion, knowing being experience?
Yeah, well, they seem to work together. Knowing seems to be sort of the collection of experiences.
Is there something in the fact that there's an experience but it's not your experience?
No, it's not like that. Because what you're talking about is that somebody gets something new, and this is now not my experience, but there's someone that knows that. So I said at the beginning, I don't have any idea what I'm going to say. I've been doing talks like this for about 3 years now, and I literally think that I'd have no clue what I'm going to talk about in these meetings, none whatsoever, because nobody actually gets anything. It's a loss of something.
so maybe when my question to you about will other people know this? I know it's a bit silly, but in a way, it's kind of that is the person's kind of trying to hold on to something still.
Well, it's trying to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, even
work it
imagining what would happen to the other people in the family or the friends or the other.
Trying to get closer. That's all it's trying to do.
Trying to get closer.
That's
to
the
it.
sort of the tragedy of the whole thing. The individual, all it's trying to do is get closer to all there is.
Yeah, even your loved ones or your friends or the buildings, whatever, whatever you like, the trees, whatever you want to get closer to or own, I don't know, Or yeah, it's kind of, I think I get a sense that life is so exciting, but you love it so much, but it's almost there's something in you that knows that you can't, not that you can't own it, it's obvious, but you don't want it to end. You just, because it's so powerful.
Death is the biggest fear of the individual.
That's
It's
what
actually
we want.
all fear.
That's what it
Death,
is.
fear of death.
It is. I think that is. That's what.
And it's what it wants. It's the one thing
That's-
the individual
that's
really
what it's
wants.
after.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I get a sense of. Yeah, that's what it's longing
And
for.
the tragedy, this is that.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, because it isn't happening. Yeah, 'cause it is.
Well, it is.
Oh, it is happening.
It's
apparently.
just unreal, appearing to be real.
Is there a memory there of the last thing that Jim, who never existed?
Well, how could they remember if something never happened?
Well, no, a memory of Jim who never existed, of him holding on to the last thing?
Jim never held on to anything. Jim is the holding.
Okay,
What we're talking about is a completely unexpected.
yes.
This is unexpected, but the individual has the experience that it knows what it is, which makes it something it's not, which of course it can't be. And from that something it's not, it has its individual experience of life that's dissatisfactory. So when it dies, it sees that it always was what it always was. It never was what it wasn't. How could it be?
When you say it sees that it never was, sorry, or it was what it always was, what is this always was?
This.
Everything?
It's just
What's
this.
happening? Yeah. Whatever's
this.
happening.
It's what is. The individual thinks it knows what this is. It understands what's happening. No, that's impossible. This is unknowing. No one knows what this is.
What's hard about that, Jim, is that when you've got Jim Newman sitting there and saying that you can't know what this is, but there's somebody sitting there pointing to it.
Yeah.
So it appears to, be a bit of a...
Well, I'm not pointing to it. I'm pointing to what isn't it. It can't point to it. How could you point to everything? Where would you take a position to point to it from?
But the thing is that this is no thing appearing as just this, and that this is not an experience for
Okay,
you.
let's get a little bit closer. It's no thing thinking. It's not appearing as something as though it's separate. It's the same thing.
Sorry, just say that again. Cause
It's the same thing. No thing and something are the same thing.
Right, okay.
No thing thinging.
No thing thinking.
So there was nothing that Jim did to make the awakening happen, because there was no Jim there to do anything to make it happen.
That's right.
So was it kind of almost predetermined in a way?
No, because it doesn't happen.
Okay.
I can tell you, Jim was on a spiritual path. Everything he did was only there to confirm the experience of Jim. The last thing Jim wanted is what is. Although he would have told you that's what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it was about. So he was really looking for it. He would have done anything he would have told you. That's what he would have said.
Did it come on gradually?
It doesn't happen.
awakening? No, it didn't happen yet.
And it doesn't happen gradually because it's only what is. Which is what is.
So once it happened, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. So there's no fear there.
It's the end of something happening.
So you couldn't have been frightened of it happening when it happened because it didn't happen.
So exactly.
The mind pretends it's going to happen.
Well, the mind needs, it's not the mind, but the individual needs something to happen. It's in the world of something happening because it's not, what is isn't enough, it isn't okay. So it needs something to happen to make it okay. That's its world. It's always in the next thing that's going to happen. It can't do anything with what is.
It's uncontrolled. You can't control it. So
Exactly. It's in a world of control, of knowing. It wants to control.
yeah. So really, the mind, if I use the word mind, is a kind of, it's non-existent.
It's not. It's not. I don't know what the mind is.
No, I don't know.
But the individual is not real.
So can you talk more about recognition?
What do you mean?
You said it was like...
Well, the end of it, when the bottom falls out, it's not a recognition, it's the end of recognition, it's the end of glimpses. Here, and it seems to be a pattern, there are certain glimpses that happen, certain things that are recognized, which have no logical order at all. So the recognition that there's nothing left was before the recognition that there wasn't anyone. I mean, it was just all... But the end of it is when all of that, when anything that's happening as real stops, ends. The end of experience. It's the end. The individual is looking for something, and this is about nothing.
So there's nothing to be aware.
Did you hear that? No, that's not. No, there's nothing to be aware of. This isn't about awareness. It's not about trying.
So it's the end of experience. What is experienced?
Nothing isn't experience. There's no experience. Experience is literally the experience of something being inside here, which ends at the skin, and then there's something else outside, and then something else perceived. That's experience. And there's a subtle tension in that whole setup, that whole thing. And that collapses. And so there's nothing in here, meaning there's nothing ending here, and there's nothing over there. There's just simply what's happening. Which, I have to say, everybody here knows this. Knowing is not the question. Yes, you do. That's all there is. I feel like in some ways that what this is about is permission. Everybody's got it, because it's all there is. It's already recognized. It's absolutely clear. There's nothing else going on. Nothing's happening. It's the most obvious thing. When the individual or experience ends, there's not something suddenly new. Everything is new. But what always was is then seen for what it is. This is that. We're not looking for something else. The individual is stuck in a world of something else because what is seems to be dissatisfied.
Very sticky, though, isn't it?
So this isn't. I'm not pointing to a what is that's different than this. I'm pointing to a what is that's exactly like this. This is that. But the individual knows what this is, and therefore doesn't. It covers over the mystery. This is unknowing.
Unknowing what? Unknowing what?
Unknowing everything is just simply unknowing. It's not what, it's just everything. It's just emptiness or unknowing or no thing being.
I know when I contemplate that, I can feel some sort of fear.
Oh yeah, it's terrifying.
Some mild, like just
Mild.
just a mild little touch or something. Ooh, all over there.
No, don't.
Even the contemplation of it
Yeah,
is like, whoa.
stay away. Although it's a loss, nothing gets lost.
What's difficult, Jim, is that if it's not an experience and it's not a feeling, and yet it's often described as unconditional love.
Yeah.
Love seems to be...
No, not love, unconditional love.
Okay, unconditional love.
which nobody knows what that is.
Right, okay.
We can't talk about unconditional love.
Right. So whatever it is, this feeling of this love that's experienced here is a completely different thing to the unconditional love in which is being pointed to.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's not an experience.
And the thing is, if there's no awareness and there's no experience, it means that whatever this is, because if you can't be aware of it and you can't feel it, I can't see what else there could possibly be.
Exactly. But that's true in both ways. There couldn't be anything else and no one could know it.
Which is both the real and the unreal.
Yeah.
So is it concepts that make things appear real to the
No,
individual?
it's the experience of being an individual. It's not concept. It's a psychosomatic misunderstanding. Which isn't a concept, it's psychosomatic.
So we're all schizophrenics.
Yeah? Individual is schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Trying to hold it all together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exhausting.
Yeah, it is, actually. It does. It works on every thought and every feeling and every experience, putting it into order, putting it into its story so that it makes sense.
Yeah. So
And it's either good or bad to the story it tells itself about whether it's leading to what it feels like it's looking for.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop. It does it with everything. Everything.
It's unending.
Yeah.
It's like it knows. It's
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't know.
No.
No.
It doesn't know it's hopeless.
know.
Because if it recognized it was hopeless, it would die.
But you know when you're kind of, you think you've got it or you're looking for it, that's it as well. There's a thing that the more you think about it, the kind of more way you see.
No, that's not true.
No.
There's no movement at all. Closer or further away. Nothing getting closer or further away from what is. There's no way to lose it. There's no way to get away from it. That's all there is.
Yeah.
That's why it's so impossible to say, because there's no way to get closer to it.
You can't approach it. Yeah.
You can't approach it, because it is that. The approach is that.
The approach is it.
The experience that it's not it is that.
Yeah. There's nothing to do.
Well, there's no one to do it.
Yeah.
There's no need.
But if all you've ever experienced is the experience of being an individual,
Yeah.
you've nothing else to sort
Well, that's
of-
all. That's the only experience there is.
and will be forever.
That's all the experience there is. We're talking about the end of experience.
Because even the past never happened. Like this is not happening.
Of course it is. We're not talking about some spiritual states where everything is completely different. What I'm pointing to is that the individual's experience of everything being real, because it experiences itself as real, is a psychosomatic misunderstanding. It's illusory. It's a dream.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean everything disappears. It's just that there's in a way, it's like the solid innards of everything gets sucked out, gets sort of drops away.
Softened in a way.
Yeah.
Not so. Things are not so harsh or hard.
Well, they're just what they are,
Yeah.
rather than what they should or shouldn't be. That story.
Yeah.
So the first kind of mistake, if you like, is thinking that you're real.
Well, nobody does that.
Uh-huh.
That's not something that somebody does. It seems to happen that there's just a sudden recognition of here. And that collects like metal filings from everything that collect in the center here as a contracted sense of I. Here and I am. It's a psychic happening. Nobody does it. And from that center then it seems like things happen.
And it's that makes everything else seem real.
That's right. But nobody does that. If somebody did that, somebody could undo it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that iron filing analogy.
So just like in a dream, everything's really made out of the dream.
Totally.
This is all made out of nothing.
Totally. Well, this is all nothing.
It is all nothing.
It's not made out of nothing. The individual loves to have nothing and something in two different places because it can have a position in that. It can have something that it knows and something it doesn't know, and it can be working towards what it doesn't know. What happens is, what the reality is, this is no thing, somethinging. So there is no position in it. There's no separation in it, there's no distance in it, there's just everything. Which isn't something else. It's exactly this, exactly as it is.
So really we don't really choose anything.
No.
Nothing, you can't kind of, it just happens. Or
Well, you'd like to be a little spiritual. The fact is the brain does it.
yeah.
The brain.
Yeah, the brain.
The brain has experience, it has what it has, and it just uses what it has to choose and do whatever it does. There's just no one in there that does that.
But Jim, even when you talk about the brain, if this is
The brain is just no thing braining.
Sure, so if it's very intimate and immediate, even the idea that a brain's doing anything must fall apart.
Well, it's just no thing braining. It's just what appears.
So it just appears in the same way.
It's just an
anything else
answer
appears.
to what he
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
The fact there's nothing that can be held on to. You
Well,
can't
so-
call this anything,
Sure.
but calling it something seems to happen.
What I'm saying
Hi,
is,
Rob.
if it's a brain braining and a blade of grassing, actually, there's no difference between the two.
Well, apparently there is.
Apparently there is, yeah. It's only apparent.
And there's an apparent brain making apparent decisions, and there's an apparent individual sometimes that comes in and says, oh, I did that. Or I know this. I know what this is. I know what I am. I know what needs to happen. I know what I'm looking for. And I know how to make it happen, although I never get it there.
The humour.
When they... it's even funnier now.
Is it? The humour. You know, the humour. Do you not miss the futility? Do you not miss the futility?
Right. No. Do you miss banging your head against the wall? Yeah.
No?
Nobody ever banged their head against the wall. The me is really, the individual is really stuck in a world of knowing things. So what is it like is knowing what it's like. This isn't about knowing. It's about the fact that there was never anything that was known. Everything's just simply an appearance of what is. And nobody knows what that is.
So is it like saying what it is not is experiencing?
Well, obviously that's it as well. It's just a dream. It's not anything.
I'm just trying to get further away from
Well, you're trying to create boxes, and that's the point. There's no box. There's no position in this. It's freedom.
you almost can't do anything but try to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a constant.
So you're explaining very well the problem for the individual. It's desperate to get a hold of something real.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say, in a way, you can always say the opposite of everything. So you can you could also say all there is knowing, just the activity of
No, you
knowing,
can't.
but no one knowing anything and nothing to do with
No,
knowing.
no, I wouldn't say that.
Okay, some teachers do, but I think.
I imagine. So, well, that's the,
'Cause I
there's
think
the
you
real
could
difference.
almost
There's
say the opposite of everything.
there's no teaching going on here.
But neither there is there. I just think life's like a paradox, like, because I can listen to yours and totally, like, get it, and I can also listen to the opposite way of expressing it. It's like there's no real one true way to express it, really, is there? Because it's all no thinking, everything.
I can't speak for how other people
No,
do it.
yeah, I just thought it was interesting because when you say this, no knowing, but yeah, like.
But
no,
knowing
I
is
see.
experience. Knowing is distance. Knowing is solid. Knowing is a fixedness. And what's being expressed here is absolutely not that.
I would say if you say something is known, then that's like something, but it's just an activity of knowing, dreaming, being, seeing. Do you know what I'm trying to
Well,
say?
just when somebody
Without
says
being
knowing,
anything, like,
it sounds to me like there's someone that knows.
I don't mean it that way.
Mm.
No.
It's like a moment of separation.
Knowing.
No, just the sort of birth of the illusory sense. It's like
Yeah.
you kind of feel that. It's
Jim, would it be fair to say that it's known but not by anyone?
No. I don't know how anybody would say this was known. It doesn't seem to be, that sounds very different to what's being expressed here.
Right.
Knowing.
Has to be someone to know, doesn't there?
Well, there has to, for me, it would be awareness. There'd be something happening. Knowing seems to be something happening. And what's being shared here is the end of happening. Is no thing happening. I can understand knowing. I can't understand no thing. And what I'm sharing here is not something that can be understood.
So once it's conceptualized, that's not it.
Well, in a sense, it's not it, but of course there is only that. So knowing is also that, but it's covering over the reality of that appearing as knowing. It's unknowing appearing as knowing. You know, I mean, there's certain kinds of knowing. I know I like sushi, but this is completely unknowable. So there's no way I could say anything about this in relation to knowing. It's too immediate.
Yeah.
So anything the individual thinks that they know about this, they don't really know. They just think they do.
Absolutely. And anybody teaches about this isn't what's being shared here. It just falls apart, completely falls apart. There's no one to tell, there's no one that would want to hear, and there's nothing to say. It's the end of that whole construct, that whole need of anything outside of what is.
When you say you know you like sushi, that's story. That's story.
Well, it's an appearance.
Yeah, that's just story. That's just attaching a story to what is.
Well, it's
The
just something
liking of
that's
sushi.
stored in the brain.
Yeah, there's liking
The
of
ex-
sushi.
Yeah.
Saying I like sushi is a story.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
you could say that's a story.
It's kind of conditioning. All of your likes and dislikes are all part of your environment.
It's all in there.
It's all been programmed.
It doesn't
in.
belong to anybody.
Yeah. It's just been sort of learned, kind of. And then you've got to unlearn it.
Why?
Yeah. Good.
nowhere to go.
But there's no need to go anywhere.
There's a need to use the look, can I?
Yeah. No.
No, you need to change that.
Shakes the foundations of the whole experience.
It totally does, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Try to hold on to something.
Yeah.
Right. No, none of that. None of that.
I was just wondering what I'm going to say when I go home and the missus says, what did he talk about?
Yeah.
It's like they say when they get off the phone, nothing.
After 3 hours.
She's telling the truth, man.
Experiencing, it's like, it's not all bad, is it?
I'm not talking about anything being good or bad.
Yeah, I know. Quite like, do you know, time? It's actually, it feels quite beautiful, the exploration of it from this position feels itself like there's some sort of energy to it, which is...
It's amazing, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was quite...
So it's not a knowing or an experience, is there a seeing involved? Or
No, there's no experience,
nothing?
there's no perception.
A realisation?
Well, those seem to happen, but they've got nothing to do with this. Anything that happens is a story.
Yeah.
This isn't happening.
Yeah. Just trying to get it, that's the problem really, I guess.
Oh, totally. But there's no one that can do anything about that.
I don't understand that this isn't happening.
Yeah.
Clarify it.
Well, it appears to happen,
Okay.
but it's not really happening. Nothing's really happening. Nothing's really moving. It appears to move,
Uh-huh.
but it's not real. Nothing's real.
Nothing is the only thing that's real.
No, no, no. No, there we are back to a position. Something's unreal, nothing's real. No, it's all the same thing.
Okay.
So sunlight is nothing sunlighting.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's sunlight, nothing.
so is that a story? Just sunlight?
Sunlight, yeah, I guess you could say it's a story.
Sunlight's a story because it is actually nothing sunlighting, so nothing's happening.
Well, it's not nothing sunlighting, it's sunlight nothinging.
Okay. So from that point of view, it's a story because it's actually nothing happening.
Nothing's happening.
Yes.
Anything that seems
So
to happen.
anything apparently is real and unreal.
Exactly.
But if there's nothing happening, so sunlight's a story.
Everything's a story.
Everything
Everything that seems to happen is a story. There's nothing wrong with the story.
What was your personal experience, you know, as the sort of illusory self or whatever, in terms of
Probably the same as
an
everybody
apparent
else.
change? What was it?
I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Did you kind of go through, you as, you know, as your illusory individual, did you go through some sort of,
It didn't happen. There's really no way to get this.
I appreciate that.
So that is all there is. That is what's being looked for. That's it. That's the end of it. This is the end of seeking. And nobody knows that. Nobody knows what this is.
And nobody knows what this is because there isn't anyone?
Yeah. Well, because there's nothing to know.
And no one to know it?
And no one to know it. And no need to know it.
Sort of when you're sick, you kind of feel like you know it more.
Sounds like a path. Well, I'll be getting flu shots.
Seems a lot realer when you're sort of sick.
Oh.
You know, if you have an illness or there's pain.
You're talking about experience seems more real when you're sick, or
Sorry,
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, it's just the way it just came. It's a kind of I'm trying impossible to work out. Well, it's not. It doesn't need working out, but
The individual would want to attach it to certain experiences, certain happenings as being more or less what is. And there isn't actually anything that's more or less what is.
So
the experience of being individual is equally what is as anything else, as the end of experience.
So I've got you. Yeah.
So there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to go.
This is it.
And this is it as well. The person's it. The story is everything. Even the thought of getting ill and be thinking, well, you're not going to get ill because you're not there. But that's it as well.